GB. Today, we're delighted to be hosting a webinar with Kambi on the evolution of the NFL sports bettor from 2018 to 2021. The Super Bowl LV between the Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers saw Kambi process the highest bet volumes in its history, and with more US states looking to regulate sports betting, engagement with NFL betting will only continue to grow. In this webinar, Kambi's team of experts will provide exclusive insights into how NFL betting has evolved since the repeal of PASPA, from the growth of in-game betting to the increasing popularity of parlay betting, which alone accounted for approximately 50% of sports betting revenue in New Jersey last year. Our expert speakers today are Matthew Hosman, Joshua Benjamin, and David Ball. I'll hand over to Matthew to kick things off shortly. Before I do that, I just want to tell everyone there'll be a Q&A section following the presentation, so please do submit questions as we go along, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible in the allocated time. With that, I'm going to pass over to Matthew. Over to you, Matthew.
Thanks, Stephen. So thanks everyone for joining today. Kambi is extremely excited to here today to deliver a high-level overview of the latest trends among NFL sports bettors and demonstrate to you all how the product has evolved in the United States since the repeal of PASPA. We will start with just a quick round of introductions. So my name is Matt Hosman. I'm Kambi's U.S. Director. I help lead Kambi's United States strategy consulting with Tier 1 prospective partners across the United States, helping them navigate the best ways of market entry in the sports betting space with the goal of getting these key relationships onto the Kambi sports betting platform. Prior to my role as U.S. Director, I wore several hats for the company, managing key new customer partnerships and launching 11 total retail sports books. Josh, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Benjamin. I've been with Kambi for over 2 years. I'm a partner manager. I work closely with a lot of our large US-based partners, and happy to be here talking through the NFL today. I'll pass it to you, David.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I'm David Ball, and I work with Josh and Matt in Kambi's Philadelphia office. I formerly worked in our London office and moved out here as we expanded our US trading team. Within that team, I head up our pre-game NFL, and more recently have been involved in helping develop our game parlay product.
Okay, with that, we're just going to go stop sharing our web screens for the moment to make the presentation larger. Okay. So a lot of prior to me actually diving into the evolution of NFL sports bettors in the United States, for those who aren't familiar with Kambi and our business model, a couple of common questions we often hear are: who is Kambi? How did Kambi become the leading sportsbook supplier in the United States? So Kambi is a full end-to-end B2B sportsbook. We're a global company. Currently in the United States, it's our number one strategy. Since PASPA was repealed in May 2018, we were able to take the very first wager in the state of New Jersey in August 2018. Since then, Kambi have launched in 15 total states. When I began my career at Kambi approximately 2.5 years ago, we just opened the United States office in Philadelphia. The US GM, a few other key hires, including Josh, David, and I, we were the very first Kambi employees leading the charge in the United States for the organization. Now, Philadelphia office has close to 70 employees, lots of traders, risk analysts, data scientists, engineers, and development staff, commercial contacts. We got sportsbook control and ITs. And so if we can move to the next slide, please. So as I've described previously, we've launched in 15 total states, and part of us launching in 15 total states has really shown our success in the United States. What we've done in the United States is we have a large regulatory compliance team, and we have a number of different partner managers in the United States. We have a huge sportsbook control team, which has led us to launch in 11 market first states across the United States. I mean, it's super important for our clients to be the first to launch in one of these states, and it's important to Kambi to stay a market leader across the U.S. And that's a tribute to all the different managed services that we provide to ensure that we really stay atop across the U.S. As we streamline across in retail and online sports books across the United States. Thanks. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, Josh, you want to take over here?
Sure. Thanks, Matt, for the introduction. So today, I will walk through some trends related to the NFL season. And just to preface everything, Kambi's history, our expertise, and the vast network data we have puts us in a really great position to track some of these key consumer trends since PASPA was repealed in 2018. With the new NFL season just getting started, we will mainly be looking at data from the previous seasons, and we'll tie in some trends that are starting to appear in the first few weeks. So here's the agenda and some of the trends we'll talk through over the next few slides: in-game wagering, live betting, instant markets, on-property betting, player prop popularity, and then combinability with our new game parlays product. Next slide, please. So in-game wagering, also known as live betting, it's a major growth area for U.S. sports books across the major 4 U.S. sports. And this really refers to placing a wager on a game after kickoff or after the first pitch once the game started. Next slide, please. So over the last few years, we've seen an increasing percentage in players or bettors engaging in live betting. Live betting really provides a lot more opportunities and flexibilities in a match for users than pre-match betting does. So while we're still behind on the pre-match and live splits we see in Europe, the data shows there's really room for growth, and this is becoming a real big growth area for our partners. Due to how the games are constructed, lots of breaks in the NBA, in NHL, NFL, MLB. There's a lot of opportunities for players to get involved in a market spread, money line total throughout the game. They also show, their data shows that with mobile betting, there's a higher rate of engagement throughout the game, and we're also in a position to we have a really robust offering that in any given game there's over 160 opportunities to bet on various markets, including spreads, totals, alternate spreads, alternate totals, money line, and game props. We're also seeing growth on our live betting and the self-service kiosks at our land-based sports books, which will be covered in more detail shortly. You can go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the trend we're observing is a behavioral shift in the NFL towards more live betting. Although pre-match is extremely popular and is still a major revenue driver, the split is almost 50-50, and we do expect this trend to continue over the next few years. As you can see, about 57% of wagers came in pre-match, and that is down to 52%. So we're getting closer to that 50-50 split, as I mentioned. And we expect this trend to continue over the next few years. A large reason for this is partly due to our excellent trading tools and resources that allow us to have excellent line availability that shows live betting opportunities in markets well over 90% of the time throughout the course of an NFL game. As U.S. customers can grow more accustomed to in-game betting, our offering will continue to expand, and we will help our partners grow handle and revenue in the years to come. Next slide, please. So this is a really great chart. Here we can see the 3 main markets: spread, money line, total, and the shift from pre-match to live over the past 3 years. As much as 90% of the bets that came in during the regular season were on these 3 primary markets. And with the evolution of in-game wagering and live betting, we've seen that come down to about 60% last year. And another aspect of this chart is throughout the season, it's kind of a learning curve. Bettors will become more familiar with the teams. They understand the product offering a little better. Live betting becomes more and more prevalent throughout the season, as noted throughout these charts. And then you'll also see a spike in live betting throughout the NFL playoffs, culminating with a really big spike in live betting handle during the Super Bowl. Last year, about 30% of the Super Bowl bets were on the main markets, which is an interesting number, but not really a huge surprise given the volume of markets we have available for the Super Bowl. Ultimately, when there's less games to bet on, bettors are more engaged throughout the playoffs with the matchups. This facilitates a higher level of live betting handle compared to a normal Sunday in the fall, where it's really not uncommon for NFL bettors to just watch Red Zone, catch the highlights from across the league. But as the playoffs go on in the Super Bowl, there's a lot more concentration and engagement with that small volume of games. Next slide. So now I'll talk about instant betting, which is really the next iteration of live betting, also known as micro markets. So we actually launched several of these back in 2018, well ahead of the market, but they've only been consistently offered on the majority of our games in the NFL starting in 2019. We've really seen steady growth in these as they've comprised about 17% of all in-game bets during the last season. Sorry, you can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, these instant markets, which I'll show in more detail next slide, that they comprise about 17% of our all in-game live betting during last season. So by instant betting, the markets I'm actually referring to aren't the normal main markets. These are actually result of drive, like will a team's drive end in a field goal, a touchdown, a punt, or a turnover? Will the team achieve a first down on this upcoming drive? Yes or no? What will the first play of the next drive be, a pass or run? So these populate throughout the NFL season for basically every drive across every single NFL game over the course of the season. Very high engagement, very exciting to root for, and will really drive user engagement. Next slide, please. So like I just mentioned, these markets will drive revenue and engagement across the entire sportsbook, not only within the NFL, but other markets as well. Big handle, large engagement driver. The handle in these markets has more than doubled and it's made up approximately 10% of all live betting bets. These are really important because the NFL live bettors who placed an instant bet made up approximately 20% of our live NFL betting base. This cohort of players, just about 3 times as valuable as non-instant bettors. And I mentioned this earlier, engagement, it's an important factor because they are also placing about 4 times as many live bets as players who don't participate in these instant markets. Lastly, I would just point out these markets are really interesting because, long after an outcome could be decided, these bets will still be open. They're great for engagement and users can participate on a number of these, even if it's a blowout or the outcome has been decided. Next slide, please. So last year we saw the popularity of instant markets grow throughout the season, and kind of aligns with what I said earlier. It really peaks throughout the playoffs. It's a higher concentration of engagement and viewership on fewer games, and that lends itself extremely well to instant market betting. And some of the more popular ones: to gain a first down, you see result of drive throughout the playoffs. And interestingly, 37% of players who regularly bet on the NFL actually dove in and tried their hand at some of these instant markets as well. And this is a trend we look to continue into this year, into the playoffs, and in the years to come, as we look forward to expanding this and really helping our partners grow and drive engagement to their sportsbook. You can go to the next slide, please, and I will hand it back over to Matt now, who will discuss some of our developments with our on-property and retail betting at the moment.
Sorry about that. Didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, as Josh mentioned, I'm going to explain our retail solutions. Next slide, please. So we offer a specific and optimized sports betting client for our OTCs, known as over-the-counter. They are our clerk machines. We also offer our retail client over our self-service betting terminals, known as the kiosk, as you see on in the right of this picture. And then we offer digital signage management, able to be displayed for the odds for key sports that most books will have, at least 5 TV display screens behind the sports book to display popular sports or sporting futures, who wins the Super Bowl, who wins the NBA Finals, etc. We could also integrate with your loyalty system, where we could have, if you look at this screen as well, there's in the middle of the kiosk, there's a little a spot to insert a loyalty card. That's a great way for us to perform risk analysis on bettors who would normally appear as anonymous in our retail environment. And then lastly, we have our unique bring your own device technology, which is a URL where bettors are able to place pre-selected wagers on their mobile phone completely anonymously, and then they would have to come into the retail sports book and hand their phone to the clerk over the OTC to scan that bet. Just to give you guys more in depth into what bring your own device is, I mean, it's a phenomenal solution. We've seen a lot of our customers develop it across the United States, especially in states where it regulated retail first before online came about. Again, it's a mobile site. It enables players to view the lines and construct bets anywhere. But you're again pre-selecting the wager. So once you pre-select the wager, it generates a QR code, which could be scanned on property at a counter with a clerk, or if the casino decided to implement it on the kiosk, we can do that as well. We developed that during COVID. Essentially, a player could access the site while sitting on their couch at their home, pre-select all their wagers, and then a QR code would be generated. I mean, this is phenomenal for casinos that want to market and promote, a VIP line. And during an NFL Sunday, the lines get extremely busy if you're in a popular city within a state. And, we all know that more transactions at casinos equals more money. So once you adopt this, you can put these QR codes on restaurant menus, all over the casino, and then bettors could leave and with their mobile device go home and place these wagers. Now, again, this is something that we see well adopted in the retail space, but if your state, like for instance Arizona, which is just regulated for both online and retail, has statewide wagering available, you would obviously want to promote the statewide application over it, but it is a great way to drive people into land-based sports betting. Next slide. So what this is showing is what's happening in the market since we started launching brick and mortar books in the United States. It's very much become a self-service game when people go into anonymous sports betting in casinos. Whereas when we initially launched back in November in 2018, our first retail sports book, you could see that we were pushing about 60% of the bets on kiosk. Now you fast forward to current date, this past August 2021, we're nearing close to 90% of the bets are placed on kiosk. So why is this? I mean, players basically have a decision to either go up to a clerk like the old school way that most people bet in Las Vegas, through a clerk over an OTC, or they can go up to a kiosk. And again, this graph just really shows the adaptation of that kiosks are becoming far more popular in the United States. It was as low as 50% again in 2018, and since then it's not just like the NFL, but you could actually see a slight fall in the graph where its percentage falls slightly during the postseason games, and perhaps that's due to greater influx of novice bettors who prefer OTCs. But again, we think that this is something that's important, that is a great trend that's happening in the market, where self-service is really becoming well adopted across the United States, where bettors are able to go on to the kiosk and take their time and place their bets. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to David now.
Thanks, Matt. There are so many player statistics in your average NFL game, from touchdowns to yards and receptions. And thanks in part to the popularity of fantasy, our bettors are very familiar and opinionated on a lot of these player lines, which has led to an increasingly popular player prop product within our NFL offering. On the next slide, you can see some of the key offers that Kambi has on player props. If we can just go to the next slide, please. Yes, so the most popular offers tend to be stuff around touchdown scorers and yardage over-unders. Total touchdown passes thrown by the quarterback is very popular. And we go beyond this with markets like player receptions, player rushing attempts, and also match bets between different players on opposing teams. On the next slide, we can see the growing popularity across time of player props. This shows the proportion of bets on player props over the last 2 seasons. And you can see we started at below 10% in 2019, and it's now reached around 30% at the end of last season. You see a major increase in the playoffs. Josh mentioned it earlier, there being quite a high focus on playoff football, and a lot of the main stars are still involved. You see then just a small drop for the Super Bowl in February, as there's such an expansive offering elsewhere, and people turn their focus to more important matters like the outcome of the coin toss or the color of the Gatorade. Next slide, please. Here you can see the growth in props across the seasons. This shows the proportion of handle on player props from 2018 to 19 through to last season. And we saw a massive increase last season in this. And that turned our focus to how we can improve this product further, as it's so popular. What can we do to enhance that offering? Which leads us into combinability. On the next slide, please. And this is going to revolutionize the customer experience when betting on player props. Combinability is going to allow bettors to have far more control over what they can bet on. They'll now be able to build custom bet offers according to what they think is going to happen within a game involving several markets. Next slide, please. Here you can see an example on the right of the new Kambi game parlay product, which we launched this NFL season. A significant amount of revenue has been generated from parlay betting prior to this season. So knowing the potential of parlay betting, Kambi launched this game parlay product, which is going to dramatically increase the amount of things you can parlay within an NFL game. Previously, people could parlay across games. You could combine money lines from across the Sunday slate. You could back all the overs. But now what you can do is bet on player props within a game, but also across games. So as the picture shows, you can bet on a player prop in the Bills game and Bills to win, and combine that with another game with Derrick Henry to score a touchdown and the Titans to win. This ability to go across multiple games is unique to Kambi in the US. The way we see it, there are 3 stages in the evolution so far of combinability. The first one was the simple parlay across different games involving the main markets like moneyline or total points. The next step was to allow same game parlays, so bets on multiple offers within the game. Kambi's gone straight to the third step, where you can bet on some of those offers within the game, but also combine it with another game, which again you cannot do anywhere else in the US. And it doesn't stop at the NFL. If a bettor wanted to, they could also throw in a selection from anywhere else on the sportsbook. So we're about to hit the sweet spot where NBA comes back and MLB and NFL is still going on. So your average Philly sports fan, for example, could bet on Jalen Hurts over 1.5 touchdowns, Devontae Smith first touchdown scorer, Eagles to win, and they could also throw in a bet on the 76ers, on the Phillies as well. Next slide, please. Here you can see the bet offers that we have available in our game parlay product. On the left-hand side, you'll see 15 markets which are allowed for game parlays. These cover the vast majority of what people bet on in the NFL. So we focused on having the main markets that people are interested in playing on. And as you'll see, it's a lot of player props, the popularity of which we discussed just before, and then also some other markets such as total points by the team and exact winning margin. We intend to continue to expand this offering as time goes on, and on the right hand side you can see some of the potential new offers that we hope to add during the season, and then longer term we hope to add more player props. Next slide. Here you can see some of the key numbers on how the game parlay product has performed so far. There's been great engagement with 35% of NFL bettors having a bet on the game parlay product. And this is a number that we expect to grow with time as familiarity with the product increases. Then another key one is 37% of game parlay bets are placed across more than one game. So again, that's the area that is unique to the Kambi product. It's an area where we have an edge where you can go across games. So that's a really important and high number. Another key area with our game parlay product is that it's fully integrated into the existing sportsbook experience. This means it is all in one place, so you don't have to go between a game parlay section and the regular sportsbook section. You can do it all in one place, and because that is linked, it means we can guarantee a high quality of pricing and pricing that is consistent across those products. we took time to build this in the right way, and the infrastructure and algorithmic setup is going to allow for further developments to be made to this product over time. And as well as continuing to grow the game parlay product for NFL, focus is already shifting towards other areas as well, and Kambi plans to use what is learned in this process to extend game parlay to further leagues and sports, with leagues like MLB and NBA being at the forefront of those plans. Then eventually we hope to bring other popular features such as cash out and in-game betting into the game parlay product. Now back to Stephen for the Q&A.
Thank you, David. Great stuff. As David said, we've now got time to address some questions from the audience. To our listeners, please continue to send any questions through you may have, and we'll address as many as possible. I'm going to kick things off. My first question is going to be, how difficult is it to deliver a successful instant betting solution? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I can take this one. So it's very difficult, and we've seen lots of operators in the U.S. Outsource this to other companies. In order to build a successful solution, you really need a bunch of things: strong tech and a platform, very good modeling and automation. You need access to the right data, the ability to settle bets quickly, which itself is not that easy to do. Also, probably the human element to it, where in-house expertise is pretty much a requirement. And then, lastly, the ability to connect to your users and really identify, what will be the popular markets, what will provide entertainment to bettors, what will people be interested in betting their money on. So lots of variables, and all in all, definitely difficult to deliver a successful solution. Thanks for the question.
Okay. Okay. My next one is, all right. How does the Kambi game parlay product actually differ to the other products in the market then that are out there? How does it differ?
Yeah, I can answer this one. So we talked a bit about some of this in the presentation. One thing that I didn't mention that makes it quite unique is it was developed in-house, which meant we could utilize the expertise we have in proprietary pricing and risk management, and instantaneously offer odds on demand with great availability and accuracy. So there's that. There's also, as we talked about, the ability to parlay props and main markets, not just in one game, but across multiple games, that makes it unique, and taking selections from other sports. And then, yeah, what we talked about with the integration into the existing sportsbook, so there's no need for us to outsource to another provider, and that allows us to deliver that consistent pricing.
Thank you. Okay, my other question from me. Which of the 5 trends that you referred to as identified during the presentation do you think will have the biggest impact on NFL sports betting?
Yeah, I can take this one as well. So I think all the trends we talked about and covered today will be important in their own right. But one we're really keen on and focusing is the combinability is really in the infancy. Around the game parlays we're doing, and it's still in the early stages here. So there's a lot of developments, whether it comes to in-game same game parlays, cash out availability. But everything we're doing is basically centered around putting the user, the bettor, in control of their sports betting experience, which is what we've really focused on doing from day one, and how we're empowering our partners to do the same.
Okay, we had actually an audience question come through, which I'll are bet sizes the same in-game as they are pre-game?
Yeah, I could take that one. So what we notice is pretty much a little bit different. The pre-game wagers compared to in-game wagers. There's a higher volume of live bets done in-game, live betting and instant markets. The average bet size is a bit smaller than what we've observed pre-match. Not sure if that's going to continue as everyone expands and the market grows, but that's what we've observed over the last few years.
Thank you. There's another audience question has come in as well. Happy to take this one as well. What sort of interactions stroking but does Kambi have with regulatory agencies at the state level in the US, especially in new stroke emerging markets that are just beginning to engage in the regulation of sports betting?
Sorry,
Sure,
am I coming in okay? I can take this.
Yeah,
one.
I can hear you. Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, whenever on the sales side, any new customer we're interacting with that we're possibly going to be doing business with, we have to, on the regulatory side, like get involved with these new state regulations, like way ahead of, you know, once the legislation basically passes, we're talking to that state to you know, figure out what we need to do in order to get licensed. So in terms of like the sort of interactions we have very often interactions with each state. I mean, we have relationships, you know, across all the states that we're live right now that we've launched in. You know, again, we've launched in 15 total. You know, whether it's tribal agencies or state agencies, you know, we're having those conversations, and we as a company are getting licensed. And then, you know, myself, Josh Benjamin, our retail deployment team needs to get individually licensed, like to be able to go on site to launch these retail brick and mortar sports books. So there's a lot of different legalities that go into it. You know, tribal agencies have their own processes and own paperwork that our regulatory team need to abide to, which are typically different from state agencies. So we're very, very proactive in how we get involved in here, and we have relationships in all the states that we're involved in. I mean, I think just to talk about this a little bit more, you know, new states that we're looking at are state of California, state of Texas, New York. You know, these are all states like Texas and California that aren't legalized yet. New York, with the recent RFP that went out, you know, it's a state that's regulated from a retail standpoint, but we are far ahead and involved in all those states. Florida is another big one. So, you know, I think when you saw that slide on our speed to market as we've come across the United States, you know, we have about 15 plus lawyers that we work with that are, half of them are regulatory, half of them are commercial lawyers, and then we also have our sportsbook control team and our offering regulatory compliance team that work with those different agencies to make sure that we're trying to push the best sportsbook offering that's going to make the most profitability, whether it's with a tribe or a new state. So there's a lot of different moving parts, and then there's the actual individuals that go out and launch the retail books as well. We got to get them licensed. So all those parts combined is what makes us successful with the relationships that we lobby with across the United States.
Great stuff. Well, that's actually all we have time for today. So thank you very much again to Matthew, Josh and David for joining us and sharing your insight. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be available to listen to on demand shortly on igamingbusiness.com for you to rewatch and also share with your colleagues. Otherwise, we'll see you all soon. Good afternoon.